What is up, YouTube? I'm Godite74 here, bringing you our Week 2 battle of the APM. This week we take on Honch, coach of the Chicago Bulus. We are going into this game with an 0-1 record, while my opponent is going into this game with a 1-0 record. I hope everybody enjoyed watching Pokemon World as much as I did, at least if you did watch it. I've been watching a lot of it this past weekend, particularly VGC, but I hope everyone enjoyed regardless. If this goes up, it'll probably up by the time it's over. Maybe it'll be just ending when this goes up. I'm not sure. But again, hopefully everyone enjoyed watching that this weekend. To reiterate, we are facing up against Honch. He did win his first Week 1 game. I forget who he beat, but that's how his Week 1 went. Well, we did unfortunately take a loss last week, but hopefully we can bounce back this week. Unfortunately, Honch does have the momentum going into this game. And one thing that Honch also does have on his team is a good setup mon, which is pretty rare in the lower tiers because a lot of the good setup mons overall in drafts are in more of the higher tiers and most of them are banned. So having a good setup mon is kind of tough to deal with in the lower tiers, but hopefully we can work around that. You guys obviously don't know that that mon is because I haven't showed you guys the team, as I do that basically every week for some reason. But I'm going to break down his team now. My opponent's team this week consists of Tyrantrum, Shaman, Rotom Heat, Jolteon, Jellicent, the GOAT himself Gallade, Weezing, Armaldo, Chatot, and Clefairy, Z users being the Gallade and the Chatot. Now, what I expect him to bring consists of Tyrantrum, Rotom Heat, Jellicent, Gallade, Weezing, and Armaldo. He could drop the Jellicent for the Jolteon or Rotom Heat for the Jolteon, and Shaman is definitely a possibility there. The reason I didn't put Shaman there is because my offense just kind of obliterates Shaman, and I do have some relatively good switch-ins on my team to Shaman. It's definitely something that could come because it's a Shaman. It's a decent mom in lower tiers, but overall, I wouldn't be too shocked if he left it on the bench this week. But his two scariest mons on the team easily are the Tyrantrum, which is the good setup mon, and another pretty good setup mon is the Gallade. Ironically, my own favorite Pokemon is probably the scariest thing against me in this team, because Psychic and Fighting coverage against my team is actually really good, because Psychic deals with my offensive threats, and Fighting deals with a lot of my defensive threats, and that combination alone is very scary. Tyrantrum's really scary because Dragon Dance is just kind of not free against my team, but if he gets a chance to set it up, then it becomes pretty scary. I do have ways around it, but it's going to be still a problem regardless. Jellicent is sort of a problem defensively. It's not that bad, but it could be a bit of a problem. But that is mainly his team. The one thing about this matchup I do like for me is that my opponent here has a very hard time pivoting around my team because his only wall that gets recovery in Jellicent, well, Clefairy does too, but in Jellicent, has a really bad matchup versus my offense. So that's why he's going to have a pretty hard time dealing with my offense. And I think I'm going to try and use that to my advantage. Also, and that is basically kind of the team breakdown pretty quickly, I think. We're going to go into the team I am bringing this week. The team I am bringing this week consists of Sneasel, Roserade, Empoleon, Rhydon, Blaziken, and Togetic. So as I just mentioned, the first one I am bringing on the team this week is going to be Sneasel. Sneasel is rocking out with max attack and max speed with an adamant nature, moves being Icicle Crash, Knockoff, Ice Shard, and Iron Tail with the Icium Z. I looked at my opponent's team, and the first 2 seconds of building, I threw Sneasel right on the team. It was pretty obvious this thing was going to be coming because the Ice typing is just really good against my opponent's team regardless. And his switch-ins to Ice aren't that great. He's got Jellicent, but Jellicent's weak to Knockoff. And Weezing is pretty bulky, but if I can whittle down Weezing, I can just beat it down, as well as the Armaldo. And that was kind of it. And just Sneasel has a really good field day against this team, as long as I can whittle things down, because Sneasel doesn't really hit the hardest. The Icium Z is there just to nuke something, like something offensively on his team, particularly the Gallade or the Tyrantrum. I can just OHKO those two things with the Sneasel. Gallade could run Vacuum Wave. If he does, my opponent deserves to beat me every day of the week, but other than that, the Sneasel can beat the Gallade with the Z move, and as long as it's not Scarf Gallade, it beats just a lot of things on his team, so that's why I decided to throw Sneasel on there. Iron Tail is solely for Armaldo if I need the damage. I don't plan on clicking Iron Tail. It's not on my radar. It's just if I'm in a position where I need to knock out an Armaldo, that's what Iron Tail is there for. But I'm not going to be clicking Iron Tail. 9 times out of 10 I'm clicking Icicle Crash. But that is going to be the Sneasel. And Ice Shard is there to make sure if Tyrantrum set up and it's really low, I can just Ice Shard to revenge it. That is Sneasel. Next up we have my dedicated lead. We have Roserade. Roserade is rocking out with the AV with the max special attack and 232 speed with Timid Nature and 24 in HP. Moves being Energy Ball, Sludge Bomb, Extra Sensory, and Hidden Power Water, but it's actually Giga Drain. I have to switch that up because I did end up bringing Giga Drain in the end. This leads against his team every day of the week. The only time this doesn't lead, actually, is if he brings Jolteon, Shaman, and Jellicent, because then I'll need Roserade to switch into some attacks throughout the game. Roserade, if all 3 of those don't come though, Roserade probably leads and just tries to nuke something because this thing can tank almost any one hit. The only thing I really can't tank is a Scarf Tyrantrum's Head Smash, and I don't think Tyrantrum's going to be Scarfed this game because it just doesn't make sense to me. I have too many rock switch-ins, so he would have to need the coverage to switch up, and that's why I don't think he's going to be running Scarf, and I can just do a load of damage to it. Hidden Power Water is there for the Rotom Heat because I outspeed that thing, and it just does a lot of damage to it, as well as the Armaldo. And Sludge Bomb is really free against his team. Jellicent is pretty thick, especially defensively, but Giga Drain just does a lot to it, so it's not that big of a deal. In fact, Roserade switches into Jellicent a lot of the time, too. Since I have the AV, I can also switch into Jolteon 2 times with, unless he predicts me with HP Ice both times, I can switch into Jolteon pretty much. And yeah, that's kind of just the Roserade set. I don't really know what else to say. It beats Clefairy because the set of Clefairy is a little threatening. I don't really think he's going to bring Clefairy, but if for the off chance he does, that could be a little bit scary. So Roserade can tank any hit from that thing, and I can do a lot of damage back to it. But that is the Roserade. Next up, we have Empoleon. Empoleon is rocking out with Scald, Roar, Toxic, and Defog with the Shuka Berry, max HP, and kind of like split defenses with some speed. This is speed creeping, like no speed Tyrantrum for whatever reason that happens, but I don't think I'm going to have to worry about it. And also make sure that things speed creeping Empoleon, like I can outspeed things speed creeping my Empoleon. That's why the speed's there. This cannot touch Jellicent attacking wise, but if I get a Toxic on it, and that's just a win in itself, because then I could just sit in front of Jellicent. Because unless Jellicent's an offensive variant, then he's not going to be doing too much to me, and Toxic will whittle down the Jellicent after a long period of time. His offensive threats do not appreciate switching into Scald. Weezing doesn't appreciate switching into Scald. Rotom doesn't really want to switch into Scald. And if I can, Jolteon's not going to really want to switch in. If it does, then I just have a Roserade switch in. So it's not the biggest deal in the world. This does give Shaman sort of a free switch, but this is the only mon on my team that doesn't really have a good matchup against Shaman overall. Well, Rhydon too, but this is just really it. And Shuka Berry is there to tank an Earthquake from Tyrantrum if he decides to go that route. If he runs like DD, Dragon Claw, Head Smash, and Earthquake, I can tank any of those hits, even at +1, and either Roar, Scald, or Toxic, depending on the situation. And that's sort of just the Empoleon set, just here to tank hits. Next up, we have Rhydon. Rhydon is rocking out with the Eviolite, max HP at 188 speed def, 48 speed, and 24 in defense with an Impish Nature. Moves being Rocks, Toxic, Earthquake, Rock Slide. Obviously, you gotta get him up. This is my switch in into Jolteon, because if he doesn't run HP Ice, he cannot touch Roserade. And if he runs HP Ice, I can tank 3 of those, I believe, from Rhydon, because Rhydon is that thick with the Eviolite. I thought that was really cool little tech I had there. Obviously, every time I bring in Rhydon, first move I click is Rocks, because Rocks are really good, and I can just click Toxic, Earthquake, or anything after that. I can switch into Rotom Heat, even though I don't appreciate a Will-O-Wisp. I'll take it, and I'll Rock Slide it or Toxic it, depending on the situation. And this also does sort of give Shaman a free switch in, but if I get Rocks up, that's essentially a win-win for me, because I can switch into Roserade with the AV or Empoleon or whatever, depending on the situation. But that is mainly Rhydon to switch into, like Rotom Heat, Jolteon, a few of his physical attackers like Armaldo, even Tyrantrum too. Tyrantrum's not doing too much to me as well. But that is going to be Rhydon. Our 5th mon we have is going to be Blaziken. Blaziken is rocking out with the Choice Scarf with the max attack, 184 speed with a Jolly Nature, and 72 in HP. Moves being Flare Blitz, Superpower, Stone Edge, and Knockoff. This is the only reason I could see like Jellicent coming, and that's the reason I think Jellicent is going to end up coming, is because this Blaziken runs house on his team if he does not bring the Blaziken. Because Flare Blitz nukes, with the Scarf, I outspeed everything on his team that isn't Scarf. I nuke his top tier mons, I nuke Jolteon, I do so much Rotom Heat with Superpower or Stone Edge. I just do so much damage to a lot of his team, and his physical walls in like Weezing on Armaldo and Jellicent are going to be very heavily pressured by the rest of my mons. So I felt like endgame Blaziken would be really good, because those mons would be whittled down by then, and Blaziken can come in and clean up. And this outspeeds a +1 Tyrantrum, so that's also another way out of Dragon Dance Tyrantrum. I was a little terrified about that thing. And so, yeah, that is going to be Blaziken. It also outspeeds Shaman, so I don't have to worry about Psychic or Earth Power, because Blaziken is a little bit frail, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to tank those. So, yeah. And then finally, we have Togetic. Togetic is rocking out with the Eviolite with max HP, max defense, with Dazzling Gleam, Air Cutter, Toxic Roost. This is my Gallade switch-in, because at this point, my Gallade switch-in does not exist. I have to be very careful of Swords Dance, Stone Edge. I can tank 1, but I don't really want to be consistently switching into, like, even just regular Stone Edge, I don't want to be switching into. So that is something about this Togetic I really have to be careful of. If Togetic goes down, then my Gallade switch and just borderline doesn't exist. Luckily, my offense has an okay time with it. Like, Blaziken's good against it. Sneasel with the IZ nukes it. And with Roserade with a little bit of chip, because Gallade has, you know, some nice special defense, because, you know, Gallade's a pretty good mon. But overall, it's not going to be... Gallade's scary if it gets a Swords Dance up, because it can nuke, like, Mesprit. That's why I didn't bring Mesprit in the end, because at +2 Swords Dance just X's or annihilates Mesprit, even if I ran max HP, max defense. So I went the Togetic route in the end. Togetic really doesn't do much outside of the Gallade, but Gallade's guaranteed to come, so that's why I decided to go that route in the end. And that is going to be the team I'm rocking out with this week. I'm feeling pretty good about it, but that's all for the team builder. We're going to go over to Pokemon Showdown, and we're going to watch the battle. Alright, we are here on Pokemon Showdown. That muffling noise you probably guys heard during the team builder should be gone now, so that's nice. My opponent did not bring the Weezing, but he did bring the Chatot, which was a pretty interesting pick. Basically, if I weaken Armaldo and Rotom Heat a bit, Sneasel kind of just completely sweeps his team, so that is kind of the goal here. As I'm going to lead off with Roserade, because Roserade's not doing too much in this game, and I can just try and nuke something turn 1. As very luckily, he gives me this Armaldo's health turn 1, as this is more of an offensive Armaldo, not like boosting or anything, just, you know, a little more EV to our offense, but I just take 75% of Armaldo's health, and that makes Sneasel so much more viable in this game. As now Chatot gives me a lot of health too with Giga Drain. I'm going to switch out into Empoleon because there's no need to risk Roserade because I can still switch in the Jellicent. And I have a really free switch in. He does chatter me and I do get confused. And he goes in the Jellicent, so I use Scald, so that turn didn't really matter anyway. I got out of confusion, that's the best. But now since Roserade's not really doing too much, I can just bring it right back in on this Jellicent. As he does go for the Will-O-Wisp, which is quite fine with me. I'm not rocking out with a physical Empoleon this week. But now I can get a free Giga Drain off as I do. Get it off on this Jellicent. It does a lot of damage. And my opponent reveals to be packing the Ice Beam, which basically just neutralizes the health I got from Giga Drain. That is fine. Jellicent is now at 50%. And now he's going to go into Rotom, and I'm going to click Giga Drain. It's not going to be doing too much, but it's fine. Chip is chip on this Rotom, and it's really important. I could switch into Rhydon if I really wanted to, but I don't think this thing's going to click Overheat. So I'm going to click Hidden Power Water and do a load of damage to this Rotom, also giving me health on this thing. As Rotom Heat does decide to bust the nut and finish off my Roserade, that is fine. Roserade put in a tremendous amount of work already, weakening the Armaldo and the Rotom to the point where Sneasel basically kind of just 6-0s this team. So I'm going to send in Sneasel now, as he is going to go into Armaldo and sack off the Armaldo. And that is 1 kill for Sneasel, so that's pretty nice. Again, just look at this team. It's just Sneasel bait. But he does go into the Gallade, and this thing's really scary as I'm going to switch out. Even though I can knock this thing out with an IZ, this thing could be Scarf, and if he does knock out my Sneasel, that could be a big problem, as he just goes for the Drain Punch, so he was pretty confident that he was either going to A, live the hit, or B, he's just Scarf. As I go into Togetic, and I'm just going to click D-Gleam, because Togetic is my main Gallade switch-in. This Rotom takes it, and I am a little bit scared here, because this thing could Pain Split on my Rhydon switch-in, which I do switch into, and he could get a lot of health back. Luckily, he just goes for Toxic, and that is not a big deal on my Rhydon at all. There's nothing really going to be stalling at my Rhydon on my opponent's side, so I can just fire off my rocks here. I can get him up. As I said in the team builder, that's everything I'm going to. Every time Rhydon comes in, the first thing it does is click rocks if rocks aren't on the field, and that's what I do. So I could Toxic this thing, but I'm going to do that with Empoleon, as I'm going to go out into Empoleon, not to risk the Scald, as he does recover up, which is fine. It's whatever. Is if I can get Toxic on this thing, which I do land a Toxic on this thing, and that is huge. I can outstall this Jellicent. Jellicent does trade status with me, as I do get burned on the first Scald. That is fine. It does suck because I don't have leftovers this week, but it's kind of whatever at the same time. I can fire up Toxics now just to whittle down this Jellicent, because Jellicent's not really doing too much to me. Yes, I'm getting whittled down a little bit faster because of the burn, but it's not that bad because Toxic damage is racking up on my opponent. But I'm going to pivot into Togetic so I can try and either preserve health on Empoleon to still tank an Earthquake, or just just pivot around to get this Toxic damage off. I do have Roost on my Togetic, and this Jellicent does not have Toxic as itself, as he just sacks off the Rotom Heat this turn, which is fine, as I'm going to go right back into Empoleon. I was expecting him just to click Ice Beam or something like that, but he didn't. So now my opponent switches in the Tyrantrum. This is a pretty big turn. I decided to Roar here because I can still live in Earthquake with a Shuka Berry, as luckily he just clicks Dragon Dance, telling me that this is one not a Scarf Tyrantrum, more a Banded one, but it's a DD set. So I prevented the Tyrantrum from setting up. He does go into the Gallade, which is the one thing I didn't want to be roared into, but that is quite fine. I can go into Togetic. He does knock off my Eviolite, but that is fine because I still can tank a hit from it. He switches out into Jellicent. This is telling me he doesn't either have coverage with Togetic or that he's choice locked into it, which I'm pretty convinced this Gallade is Scarfed the way he played it against Sneasel. But I do go for Dazzling Gleam. I crit the Jellicent. Doesn't really matter. He's just going to recover up the damage. I am going to Roost up because now that I did lose my Eviolite, I do want to be able to take a hit from that Gallade still just to see what it's locked into. So now I go out into Empoleon, I believe, as I can just this Jellicent's Toxic turns a little bit more, as he just fires off a Scald. Doesn't really do too much to me. And so yeah, I'm going to click Toxic on this turn again. I'm just going to let the Toxic rack up against this Jellicent, as he's probably going to click Recover just to try and stay as healthy as possible. because a full health Jellicent has a good chance of pulling a knockoff from my Sneasel. As now, here I decide I'm going to click Scald, as luckily he goes in the Chatot, so I do obliterate the Chatot with a Scald. I do this because if he wanted to just stay in, that's fine, because he would have just clicked Recover anyway, and it wouldn't have made a difference regardless. That's why I decided to go for Scald that turn, and that was huge because that eliminated Chatot from the battle. He comes right back out into Jellicent. The Toxic is reset, so now it's going to whittle down slowly again. That is fine, but Empoleon's down to like 10%, so at this point it's not really worth saving. So I'm just going to click Toxic till I die at this point, because if Gallade and Tyranium do not want to switch into a Toxic, as he's just going to fire for Scald. I'm going to live on 1%, but it's not a big deal because I will die to burn this turn. And this Jellicent's going to be down to 88% because of the Toxic Poisoning. Knockoff is a role, learning E was especially defensive from the Giga Drain damage. This is a role in my favor, as I do end up getting it, thankfully, and I knock out this Jellicent. That is big because if he would have lived and Scald burned me, this game would be kind of different with that Tyranium in the back. He goes into Gallade. Again, I'm pretty sure this thing is Scarf, so I'm just going to go on to Togetic, as he just goes for Drain Punch. It does absolutely nothing to this thing. And now I can just fire off D-Gleams at this point because he's going to go into Tyranium. And because of the 2 rock switch-ins, this is also a roll, but this one's heavily in my favor. It's like an 88% chance to kill it, as it does knock out the Tyranium. And at this point, it is GG because Gallade cannot lock into any one move and knock out all 4 of my members on my team, as he decides to go for Zen Headbutt. And that is fine because I'm going to try and knock out Togetic, but if he knocks me out with the Zen Headbutt or flinches me out, I can just go into Sneasel and knock it out that way. And that would be the game. So we are going to end up winning 4-0. He does not flinch me out, thus we get an extra differential point. So GG to Haunch. I definitely do believe that playing aggro with Roseade was 100% the correct play, because I was able to weaken down his Armaldo and his Rotom and do a decent amount of damage to the Jellicent before Roseade was to go down. Yes, Roseade did not get a kill and is now 0-2, but it did a lot of work in this game. Enough for me to be happy about it. And also scouting out for that Scarf on Gallade was definitely smart, because if I would have let Sneasel go down, he would have had a lot more momentum going into the game onwards from there if I would have let it go down, but I didn't. So I think I just played really well this game. But again, GG to Haunch. We are going to move up to a 1-1 record and even out our average for the season. Next week we do take on the Spanish Toros, coached by Rubens. I don't know what his record is off the top of my head, but I think he went 0-1 the first week. But that is going to be next week's battle. I don't know what he has on his team either, so we're going to figure that out next week. But thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. If you like Pokemon Draft League content, consider subscribing to the channel. I'm going to head out of here. Have a fantastic day, YouTube.